Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
Real people making bold moves. Unforgettable journeys into life's next chapter. This is the Second Act Podcast.
Every day is a new chance. Mindset on a new path. Anything is possible. Any limit I surpass. Everything is in my grasp. I got tunnel vision with a pickaxe. Life is more fun when you live like there's no strings attached.
We are back for another episode of the Second Act, and what an episode it's going to be.
I feel like this is going to be my favorite episode. Just by the way it started before we even hit record. But yeah.
Yeah, we were talking just before we sort of officially started recording here about the podcast and the journey we've been on and the guests that have come on and shared their stories and the community we built. And, you know, it's hard to believe we're a year and a half now into this journey and all the pieces that are starting to reveal themselves to what the Second Act movement is. And, you know, we've rebuilt our website, secondactmovement.com, really cool stuff coming together there. We continue to have an amazing lineup of guests, including today's guest, and I'm just super excited about the future.
Man, I'm stoked because today's theme kind of carries on for me on a personal level. One, because I'm introducing a buddy that I went to college with. I think we've known each other for like 25 years, which means I met him when I was 5.
That's wild.
That's not true. But man, so I went to school with him at Oral Roberts University. Another guy, just like one of our former guests, Nick Rottola, who is taking the wellness of people around them, the communities around them, and changing it and making it better. And we're going to hear about this from our guest today. I'm so excited just to see people that I've known for so long and see their paths just transcend anything I think that was expected of them or us. And it's so cool. But with that, I'm going to introduce Joey Odom. So today we're joined by Joey Odom, the co-founder of RO, a groundbreaking technology company dedicated to helping people disconnect from their phones and reconnect with what truly matters, being present with loved ones. RO leverages the science of habit formation to encourage families to create meaningful patterns of presence, offering the only platform that tracks and quantifies time spent away from devices. Joey's inspiration for RO stemmed from his own journey as a husband and father, where he witnessed firsthand the importance of reducing screen time to foster deeper and more authentic connections. Before co-founding RO, Joey spent 15 years in the commercial real estate sector with the Stan Johnson Company, bringing his leadership skills and passion for meaningful engagement to his new venture. A natural storyteller and all-around comedian, Joey also hosts the RO podcast, where he engages with leaders and influencers who are committed to living intentionally and nurturing real-world connections. Joey resides in Knoxville, Tennessee with his wife, Kristen, and their 2 children, Harrison and Gianna. Dang, welcome to the show, Joey.
Bros. I mean, it's so good to see. This has been, I think we're not on our second act of trying to schedule this. I think we're on our 6th act of trying to schedule this. So I'm
It's
so
taken
happy
a
to
while.
It has been a while. And Michael, let me just kick off. This is a story for Michael. John, you can listen if you want. So when we were in college,
Oh, no.
John may have told you, he
did
probably
not.
didn't. John had, I think to date, the greatest set of washboard abs I've ever seen in my life.
Nice.
And everybody on the floor knew it, but no one knew it more than John. No one. And so you'd be in a conversation with John, and there's in where we lived in EMR, we lived in 5 North, Youngblood.
Oh, this is
So,
great.
you know, shout out to Youngblood. So you'd be in a conversation with John, you'd be in a real locked in and talk, and then you just see his eyes kind of dart over, and he just give himself a little look in the mirror to check out those abs. And everybody was impressed. It was very impressive. So, Michael, that's a story for you, which translates to a question for John. John, are you still rocking those abs? You still washing your clothes on your abs?
John couldn't be more red right now.
Oh, man. I don't know. There was another story I thought you were going to open up with.
There are a lot we don't.
Let's
There's
just
a lot
leave
of
it
stories
there.
we don't
You
want to
know,
tell.
PG audience.
There's something to be said about the dad bod, but I've tried to keep up a little bit because my wife has heard stories, and
Yeah,
she'd
yeah,
be jealous if I let that go
yeah.
and,
That's good.
evolved
Yeah.
into something else. So,
Listen, semper
Nice.
fi, semper abs, always.
man,
Always abs. This, yeah. So,
Joey.
John, I mean,
What a great start to the
a
show.
Yeah.
legitimate stud. I mean, I love John Ballinger.
Thank
And
you.
in fact, I was texting with our good friend Matt Pinnell today about John. Tell him we were going to
Yeah.
connect. And
Nice.
what a guy! What a guy!
So, talking about history, when
Uh,
you bring up Matt Pinnell, a friend of ours who turns out to be the lieutenant governor of Oklahoma,
Okay.
which is a big deal. And I
Mhm.
saw him, I don't know, 2, 3 years ago. And I said, man, who would have thought you would have been lieutenant governor of Oklahoma? And he was like, who would have thought you would have ever made something of yourself? And I said, well, that's fair. I don't know if that's true yet, but I'm working on it.
yeah, I know it is true.
It's just history, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see how people change and evolve and God
Mm.
works in their lives and they just grow and mature. And so here you are. Did I say that right? Is it RO? Is
Yes, you
that
did.
right?
You did a great job.
Okay.
Yeah, RO.
What does that stand for?
So RO is a term from the Maori culture, which I'm sure you're both deeply familiar with. The
Super
Maori
deep.
culture is, and RO is a term that means to notice, to turn
Okay.
towards, to take
Nice.
heed. And so I've there's a lot of talk in culture just generally about focus, but the prerequisite to focus is just notice. I mean, here we are walking around, whether it's with our own relationship with ourselves, not being able to notice even the things that we're experiencing and feeling. It's we're not, if we're in a married relationship or in any relationship, of just noticing what's happening, and that it's almost like for you to notice a deviation from the norm, you have to first notice the norm. And so this takes a huge amount of study, as with you as a parent or with you as a spouse. And so our goal, and the biggest impediment to that, I think everybody would agree universally, and this is no demonization of technology or smartphones, because I have an iPhone that I love and I'm never getting rid of. But we do have to recognize this is the greatest potential distraction to notice. This is the greatest, which is a prerequisite to focus, which is a prerequisite to intimacy, which is a prerequisite to all the good things we want in our lives. It all comes back to notice. So how can we do that? And then I love this also, is this idea of notice, but then turn towards. And there's such a power. Just think about that. Think about when you're in a conversation with somebody and you hear stories about people like whether you like his politics or not, like Bill Clinton. People say when you interact with him, you are the only person in the room. And you hear other stories like that. And that's when people physically, and you can feel not just the physicality of it, but the emotional and the mental, and like, I'm locked in. I've turned towards you right now. So that's our hope. And it's we can go into all the stories, but we're here because of how miserably I've failed over the years of noticing,
Sure.
of turning towards. And so that's what our goal is how can we help people embrace the good of this technology, but how can we help people set aside the distraction of it so we can notice what's most important to us in our lives?
It's such a noble mission. And, the things in our pocket and in front of us, even, how we're recording these devices are designed to distract us from life.
Yeah.
And they do their best. I mean, they hire scientists to figure out, to hack into your brain and keep you wanting more of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I was thinking about this recently, why so many people nowadays yearn for like spending time with their grandparents or their great grandparents, where they go to their houses and there's just like this release and they just get to be present and enjoy the time and hearing the stories and shedding all of this modern technology. It's fascinating, and what you guys are sort of doing and where you're taking things is very commendable.
Well, it's just like anything, it's just like I said, it's from our own set of experiences of just missing the mark, and with this core belief, and it really is, this is what underlies everything. And it's going to sound super obvious when I say it. It's just a belief that the world can look different, and not being relegated to what we see. And I think a lot of that, I mean, John, so much of that, when you and I were at Oral Roberts, so much of that is the basis of faith. I live my life on faith. I mean, all of us on here, we live our life based on faith that there's something greater than us. And so why wouldn't we? I mean, if you're listening and you have any level of spirituality, if you have any level of faith, then why on earth would we accept these things that we see and the life that we see, and just this whole, oh, well, idea, or, hey, I guess kids are hooked on their smartphones now. Well, hold on a second. That's not right. That's I just don't subscribe to that, and especially not only as a person of faith, but also as just kind of a competitive person. I just don't like it. So I'd like to kind of fight back against that. So this is why, guys. This is why I think if anybody listening feels hopeless on this or feel like it's so daunting, I want people to take heart here. I could not be more encouraged at where we are going as a society when it comes to phones. And I know that may sound counter, but it's because we see these little things. People are recognizing the way it makes them feel, and they say, I don't like it. And they're starting to push back, or even say, how can I push back against that? And so it's the awareness that grows out there that I think we should all be very hopeful with this. And the last point I'll make on that is if anybody's gone through a SWOT analysis, if you're familiar with those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, if strengths and weaknesses are always tied together, opportunities and threats are always tied together. So when you identify a threat, that means that there is an associated opportunity with it. So yes, I think we all in culture recognize the threat when it comes to technology and phones, but we stop short of recognizing the opportunity that's associated with it. If we can get this right, we will transform our families. If we can get this right, we'll transform our kids and our children's children. Lastly, Andy Crouch, who's a great author, he talks about how lasting change occurs over 3 generations. So we could be the initiators of multi-generational change. So how's that for an opportunity? Why don't we do something that our grandkids are going to feel? And I really believe, and I'm not talking like so huge. I'm talking like right now. I'm talking like at the dinner table tonight. I'm talking about when your spouse gets home tonight. Like it can happen today. So why wouldn't we seize that opportunity and do something about it?
Yeah, I would say the saddest thing I see today, Joey, is when I'm out to dinner and everybody else at another table is looking at their phones, not talking to the people that they're sharing a meal with in that moment.
And I've been that guy, right? Like,
everybody's guilty of it,
right.
but recognizing it and mindfulness becoming this like trendy thing, which just was the norm, some decades ago, is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Now, Joey, I'm sure it's obvious to everybody, but you didn't wake up one day and just think, I'm going to create this RO company and help people get away from their cell phones. Walk us back. Let's go back to the start of Joey, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Give us a 5-minute peek in behind the scenes and what led you to this moment.
So T-Town, don't hate the 918. John and I went to rival high schools, you at Grace, me at Metro, just Christian school battles. So I went to, when I was at Oral Roberts, I didn't have any, I started off as a theology major, did that for a semester, became a marketing major, had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And so it's just tried to be really great at whatever opportunity was in front of me. This is one of our good friends, John, you know him too, Chris Hart, who we went to Oral Roberts with. Chris talks about this concept of stewardship, of just focus on what's in your hand. And that's when God called Moses. God said, Moses, what's in your hand? He said, my staff is in my hand. And then he said, throw it on the ground, it'll become a snake, it'll be a sign. And then later that same staff parted the Red Sea. So we all started with what was in his hand. And so how can we be great at what's in our hand? So stewardship is what's in your hand. Coveting is trying to do something with what's in somebody else's hand. So let's not try to, just as a quick little interlude, let's not try to be great at what somebody else is holding. Let's try to be great at what we're holding. So I tried to be a great camp counselor the year after I graduated from ORU. And then I tried to be a great, Reebok sales rep for 2 years after I did that. And then I got an opportunity in commercial real estate. And man, I tried to be the best little coffee runner for all the high producers that I could. And then I tried to be the best number cruncher. And then I tried, so you kind of work your way up through a combination of luck and just trying to be great at what it is. So 15 years into that is when I got a call from one of my friends that said, and he said, this is when we had moved to Atlanta at that time. And he said, hey, I got an idea I'd love to talk to you about. And that was, what if we could do something about this with our phones? But what he didn't know was what had happened to me just a few years prior to that. So this is the fall of 2013. My son, Harrison is almost 17 years old now. When Harrison was 5 years old, he was playing his very first soccer season. So important to know for the story is Harrison is the most wonderful boy. He is so sweet. He's so kind. He's so considerate, which are just honestly like such great life skills and such terrible youth soccer skills, right? Like they're like that's not a good soccer player, right? Just kind of considerate to others. Like the 5-year-old soccer players that are good are kids who have a little screw loose. They may live in a halfway house or be in some work release program. You know what I mean? Like, these are aggressive kids. This is like Big Matt J level aggressiveness, right, John? So sorry for the inside jokes here. So these are aggressive kids who are scoring goals. So this season, everybody on the team had scored a goal except for Harrison. So yet my wife and I, we lugged our lawn chairs out to the sidelines to endure yet another hour of 5-year-old soccer. But this particular day, right in the middle of the ordinary, something extraordinary happened. And it happened late in the first half. Harrison found himself standing in front of the soccer ball with the goal in his sights. And I'll be a little dramatic when I say this, but what happened next changed me as a dad. Harrison reared back his sweet little leg and he kicked. And it's almost like, I'm just, if you're listening, just imagine this moment. Close your eyes, not driving, but close your eyes if you're sitting there, and just imagine this like dramatic movie scene, like the slow motion movie with the James Horner.
I've got it going. Yeah.
You can see it, right? So the ball glides over the grass. It goes into the back of the net for Harrison's first soccer goal. And this sweet crowd, everybody knew what had happened. The last kid to score a goal scored a goal. The crowd went wild, and his coach runs out on the field. He lifts Harrison up above his head, and there's this like incredible moment, but there was this little split second in between the ball hitting the back of the net and his coach lifting him up when Harrison did what 5-year-old boys do. This Harrison turned to the sidelines to lock eyes with dad, right?
yeah.
To see the pride on my face and to see the smile on my face, to share this moment with me, right? And it was absolutely magical, except for one thing, and that's I missed it. Every bit of what I just described, I missed. See, when Harrison turned over to the sidelines to lock eyes with me, all he saw was the top of my head because I was looking down at my phone. So I didn't see the ball hit the back of the net. I didn't see his coach pick him up. I didn't see his beautiful face scan the sidelines for mine, and I didn't see the light in his face fade to disappointment when he realized that I'd missed this big moment. And I have no idea what I was looking at on my phone. It could have been an important work email. It could have been a video. It could have been a group text. I don't know. But I do know that my phone had staked a claim right then in that moment, and I can't get it back. So that was one of those moments. I didn't have the words for it then. I have the words for it now. I know that my relationship with my device was getting in the way of my relationship with someone I love. The words I just had then were just like, that sucks. Like that, that's something's wrong. Really, that was it, is like something's wrong. So when Heath Wilson, who a co-founder at RO, when he called me a few years later and said, let's get lunch and talk about it, he didn't know that backstory. So when he said, hey, I got this idea, it was an immediate yes in my heart. And it would be a couple years after I would leave my career, 15 years. But as I think back on that, there's a parable that Jesus tells. He talks about the story, the parable of the treasure in the field. And it says, a man found a treasure in a field, and in his joy sold everything he owned so he could buy that field. So here I was 15 years into a commercial real estate career that I loved it. I loved my team. Financially, it was fantastic, more than I could have ever imagined. And in my joy, and my wife too, which is like all the credit goes to her here, being willing for us to take this step together, in her joy, said, yeah, let's do it. Let's go pursue this.
Nice.
And it was nothing but joyful. It has been obviously an unbelievably difficult ride. This is what happens in startups, but gosh, every day in our joy in pursuing this, because we know, I got an email from someone this weekend who said, I was speaking at an event in Nashville and a couple talked about RO and said how that had changed their lives. And I'm like, all right, that's it. So there's multi-generational change that was initiated through them. So that was the story. That's how we got into it. And we're still just as fired up as ever. We think the opportunity is as massive as ever. And we think actually people are more receptive than ever to it as well.
It's those moments, Joey, that you just described, where you recognize something is either really amiss or that something is driving you. You know, we have guests on the show all the time that always talk about there was that split moment where they just realized they were chasing after something that changed. For me, and I've talked about this on the show before, and Michael's heard it, it was writing out my obituary. I always told my wife that my priorities were God, my wife, my family, everything else. And I had always said that, but I was always restructuring those priorities, right? And then it was when I sat down and wrote that obituary that I realized if my wife were to stand up today and give a statement to the people watching my funeral, that those priorities, and she couldn't change it, she couldn't alter it, she couldn't put all the fluffy stuff in, she just had to tell it as it is, that I was constantly restructuring those priorities. And that right there changed how I started doing things daily. You had this moment where you missed your son's soccer goal, changed everything. Michael's had those moments.
Oh, yeah.
I find that to be fascinating
Mm,
to hear people's course of life and course of success change
yeah.
to what truly seems to matter.
Mm,
One of the big things for me, it's time and attention, right? And I found myself in my tech career saying too often, let me just finish one more thing. I got one more thing. And then there was like 12, 15, 20 more, one more things.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden time was gone. And that was time I could have spent with my wife and my son and my family and being present and doing the things. And so now I've tried to re-engineer and reboot the way that I think about the world, because I don't want to say that. I don't want to miss those things like what you said, Joey. And there's a stat out there that's been floating around recently, and it's become popular, that 95% of the time you spend with your kids is between 0 and 12 years old.
Yeah.
And 98% of that time, 0 to 18 years old. And, once that's gone, it's gone. You can't get time back. So
I think about that all the time. My son Harrison, who I mentioned, he's almost 17, so I'm thinking about that every moment. And here's the cool thing about all of this is it's easy for people when they talk about items like technology, or when they think about missed moments, or when they think about lost time. It's easy to begin to go down a shame spiral. And I want people, if you feel any of that right now, I want you to, and shame is, by the way, shame is a lie. So let's identify what shame is. Shame is by nature a lie, because what shame does is it takes a past mistake and tells you with certainty about a future that hasn't happened yet. So it is a lie. By nature, it has to be a lie, because it can't tell you with certainty about a future. So what you can do, you can get this, and this is back to notice, when you begin to feel those things, you got to really be like, recognize the thoughts and the feelings that you're having, because you can actually instantly begin to recognize shame and its lies, and just the whispers of shame. And you can just, and the key thing on that is, you don't need to ruminate on those. You don't need to really like dissect it. All you need to do is just say stop, and then just bounce your thoughts. I mean, like literally, like some people will even wear like a rubber band on their wrist, and they'll give themselves a little snap that just says stop. Just like break that. Don't ruminate. Just move on from it. Bounce your thoughts from it. And that becomes a muscle when you can break that pattern of shame. But shame does have some helpfulness. And whether you call this one guilt or shame, and there's some differences obviously between the two, but just kind of feeling crappy about something you've done in the past. Shame is a good, I don't know who said this, but I love it. Shame is a great indicator, but a terrible motivator. It's a great indicator. Be like, I feel this. Okay, something's wrong, but I'm not gonna go down this spiral here. So it's really important when you start feeling those things, when you recognize that, to begin to do something productive about it with this thought. I can't do anything about that, but this I believe is what the second act is all about, is it's never too late. Let's say you're one of those people, your kids are 19 and you realize you've missed 98% of the time with them. Our buddy, you got 2% left. So let's go frickin' make the most of it. You know
but
what I
again,
mean?
that's a statistic. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you can change the future. The past is the past. And actually, I wouldn't change anything in the past. And John and I have talked about it, because when you change one thing, it changes everything.
That's right.
But you can adjust where you're headed in that moment and change how you do things going forward.
And how cool is that? Like,
It's
that's
awesome.
awesome. It's awesome. Like, this
Yeah.
is like, again, all of this is hopeful. So none of it's ever too late. Like, we can do something about it no matter where you are, when you are, and just go start doing something about it. And don't let shame take you down to this idea of I am bad. Again, the guilt and shame. Guilt is I've done something bad. Shame is I am bad. So let's remove that shame. Use it as maybe as a little bit of an indicator to go, but it can't be that motivator. Use the positive to become the motivator, to become who you would like to be.
Love it. All right, Joey. So you're in commercial real estate. You're doing the day to day. You're achieving, you're growing, you're starting to see some gains financially and in everything that you're doing. And then you leave to a startup. So talk to me, one, about this transition. You got asked by a friend to do this transition. Startups are hard. We've talked to a lot of
Nah,
startup
smooth
founders.
sailing the whole way.
Michael has been in several startups. That's hard in itself. I want you, I want to get to you explaining what RO is.
Sure.
But I want you to explain that transition, because that alone can be distracting and tear you away from your family and occupy all your time. And how'd you do it?
It is, I would say, at the outset of the idea, and this is one thing I would say that I did, and I don't say this with like a bunch of, puff out my chest, but one thing I did right, and this is from my wife, because she's just very, very good at this, is my tendency is a little bit of the fire ready aim. right? And so that would be
I
my
know
natural
someone else like that.
tendency.
Sorry.
That would be my tendency to take that approach in our zeal, and I think that's a lot of guys probably just get excited and you wanna go do something. The commitment I made to my wife from the beginning was, I'm gonna take this to the next doorway each time and see if that door jiggle the handle. If the handle's open, I'm gonna go through the next door. So we just took that in steps. There from the beginning, there was no commitment to go say we're gonna go start a business. The commitment was, let's see if other people are feeling this way about our phones that we are. Okay, we found that. Hey, we have a thesis, we have an idea. And our idea was, let's see if it makes a difference to put your phone physically distant from you in a box that we created, just as, as MVP as possible, minimum viable product as possible. And when we tested that, we found, yeah, that helps. But there was a gap. People said, well, it'd be actually kind of nice to see if I could measure the amount of time that I'm away from my phone when my phone's in that box. So we built a little dummy app to see if that could work. And we beta tested that. And yeah, this kind of helps. This kind of works. And so we kept going to checkpoint to checkpoint to checkpoint. And it seemed every time that we were getting the yes, that we were getting the yes, that we were getting the yes. So it got to a point where we were deep into, and then COVID hits, and then Heath and I are able to just ideate for hours at a time every single day. And as we went along, we got to a point where we said, and actually this was actually a kind of an awesome moment that when my wife turned 40, we went to a great place for her vacation, by far the most I've ever spent on any night of lodging. And it was this like beautiful taste, I'm going to use quote fingers, like of the good life. Like it was awesome. Like, and so I'm still in commercial real estate at the time. And I'm getting this story get slightly weird. Stay with me. So I'm lying there getting a massage at the spa there at this resort, and I'm rushed back. God gave me a memory where I'm rushed back 10 years prior in my career before we were moving to Atlanta, and our company president Phil Baxter had lunch with me, and he goes, Joey, he goes, I just feel like God is taking you to Atlanta for something much bigger than real estate. He goes, I don't know what it is, but and so I'm rushed back to that moment. I hadn't thought about that, and it gets me emotional talking about it. I hadn't thought about that moment for years. I'm rushed back to that moment, while I'm getting my lower lumbar work done. And then I felt this like very certain thing that said 2 months, 2 months, and 2 months to the day later was my last day in commercial real estate.
Wow.
And so the great thing about that is I don't believe there was a lot of fear in that. And that's because we had years of preparation before of working up to this idea. We had a good practical financial plan. We weren't going to take any salary in the, coming into the business. We just wanted to build it up. And then it's, you get into this situation of a startup, and that startup, it's in some ways it's freeing because everything is possible. And in some ways that's the worst thing you can learn, because you have
Yep.
to learn how, you get it. Like you have to learn how to focus. And when I say focus, I don't just mean on the task at hand, but just like who is your niche audience? Who are you going to target? And then you realize that's when you feel like you've found that niche audience, you probably need to go 10 times more targeted from there and just begin. How can I establish this beachhead right here at this really tiny little thing that feels way too small for us? And then once you do that, then you can expand out to the next ring out, and then the next ring out, and start expanding. So that was something I would say that we actually didn't do as nearly as well as we thought we were at the time. We weren't nearly as focused. And I think now, like where the direction our business is heading is we've placed a stake in the ground that we want to help church staffs have a technology platform that helps them be more focused. That's probably where we should have begun, in that niche of an audience. And even then you can get more niche than that. And everybody says, riches are in the niches and all that kind of stuff. And it's 100% true. So it's been a huge journey from there. There are a lot more details in the meantime there. We have these, you have moments. This is what I think it's Mark Andreessen talks about. This is a PG podcast, so I won't say the whole thing, but it's the whiffio moments that we are freaked. It's over. We're effed. It's over. Right. So, and you have those moments where it's just like, all right, well, it's over now. We had a product recall on a lot of our boxes, and okay, well, there it's over, and it wasn't over. Well, it looks like this, our consumer market. Hey, we got to make a pivot over into the enterprise market. Okay, nope, it's not over. So it's a bunch of pivoting. I will say the fortunate piece of that for us is my co-founder had a very nice exit on a previous business, financial tech business. And so he has been, short of his finances and being able to keep us afloat, that has bought us the luxury of being able to pivot. And that's been great. So That's a long way to say, guys, but it's been quite a journey. It's been a lot of learnings. It makes you realize, like we heard it before, like people invest. Yes, you invest in ideas, but you also invest in the people behind it.
100%.
And when I say that, I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about my co-founder and just saying he'd been through it. And you invest in people who kind of have been through this and have the fortitude and know how to manage all of these things that come up as they do.
Shh. Hear that? Big waves are calling. Dive into refreshment with Kona Big Wave. Tropical flavor and the taste of aloha in every drop. This summer, don't just listen. Join Kona on the Big Wave Bonfire Tour. More information at konabigwave.com/bigwavemusic. Kona Big Wave. Liquid Aloha. Copyright 2025 Kona Brewing Co., St. Louis, Missouri. Mahalo for enjoying responsibly.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
In that process of starting something new that's outside of your, I don't know, core competency or area of expertise, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Joey, but I certainly have thought about quitting like 3 times already. But thinking about quitting and actually quitting are 2 very different things. And then you have to find or sort of go back to your why as to why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And what's been one of the more like revealing things over the course of the process is it's almost like clockwork in some weird way. Like a year into it, 18 months into it, different doors start to open and things start to appear that didn't like they weren't in your purview at all, and they're like very positive catalysts. It's just, I don't know.
You can't replicate history. You can't replicate just longevity. So there's a guy, John, do you remember Justin Mayo at Oral Roberts?
Of course.
Justin Mayo is the most excitable ball of energy you've ever met. And Justin
More
is
so than Joey, which is crazy.
even more so. Yeah. He is a ball of energy. He's a short white guy who decided he wanted to go to LA and he wanted to establish a community center in Watts. So like Watts, like Tupac raps about Watts, right? I mean, it's like that's a rough area. And he got no traction for years until they realized, and we're talking like the Crips, like we're talking like the gang members, until they realized he was there to stay. And when he was there to stay, and I'll tell you, I went and visited him when I was in LA a couple years ago, and I'm walking through the projects and it was rough. And there was a car that pulled up. I'm walking around the corner and there's a car that pulls up and there are 3 guys who are eyeing me down and did not seem to have good intentions. And then Justin walks around the corner to me and these guys, their faces lit up and they said, "Oh, Justin." And so you realize that's a long way to say, like, when you can build some staying power, and you were going to want it on day one, but you can't have it on day one.
Nope.
But when you stay and you stay and you stay and you say, "No, I'm committed." When they realized he wasn't leaving them, that he was committed to that community, then that's when you start to gain the progress. So it's that hockey stick growth. And you guys are going to see it in what you're doing in the podcast here on the longer and longer. The fact that you're 75 episodes in, it's like 8 times more than the average episode. I think that's got to be, actually, I've heard it's like, I think Michael, you said it's like 10 episodes of the average. I think it's probably more like 3 or 4. And so even doing this, and then what you're going to find is we have a great podcast that people like. This podcast isn't just a podcast. This podcast is a movement now. And so you start seeing that hockey stick growth by just doing the thing again and again and again. So last little anecdote there. My brother, who's a partner at a Big 4 accounting firm, someone asked him once, they said, "Hey, how did you become a partner? And what's your story?" And it was kind of like a little kiss up question. And so he kind of flippantly answered. He was like, "Yeah, I did." He goes, "I just showed up every year for the last 15 years and didn't turn in my 2-week notice. That's it. Just don't quit."
Yeah.
So I think that's been one of the major lessons too, is just you quit. And then as you do that, not only does it's not going to be a linear growth, it's going to be hockey stick growth as you continue to dig in and commit to the thing you're committed to. And because after a while you become the expert on it.
Yeah.
So good.
Accidental expert.
Yeah, that's it.
So, so tell us, what is RO? What is the founding belief? And just you've mentioned box, you've
Yeah.
mentioned putting your phone away, but tell everybody that's not aware what RO is.
So RO is the premise of RO is, let's help you disconnect physically from your phone and replace it with something more important. So, which sounds like the most obvious thing ever, right? I mean, the science tells us, Dr. Maxie Heitmeyer at the London School of Economics says the only way to reduce your screen time is for it to be away from your body and out of your visual field of sight.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, there's no, because it would be like trying to quit smoking with a piece of tape over your cigarettes in your pocket, right? Like, so it has to be physically distant from you. And again, we're not talking flip phone. Actually, I think the easier message the more palatable and understandable message, whether people agree with it or not is a different story, is for me to say smartphones are bad, go get a flip phone. That is a much more understandable thing, because we're all looking for black and white. But if you actually wade into the gray waters here and you wade into the nuance and say like, no, this thing is adding a lot to me. But let's think about context. Is it the right thing when my daughter brings something up with me? Is that the right moment for it or not? Probably not. Is it good at the dinner table? Probably not. Any more so than me reading a Harry Potter book at the dinner table would be good for a relationship. It's not specific to technology. It's specific to distraction. It's specific to prioritizing. What's the first thing? Well, relationship is the first thing. Relationship with humans over relationship with devices. So that's the premise behind it for consumers. So we have two sectors of the business. RO is our consumer business. And RO is literally, it's an app that measures the amount of time that you're away from your phone, that pairs with a box, literally a phone for your box that charges a box for your phone that charges your phone. And when you put your phone in this beautiful box, and by the way, it's white fabric wrap, bamboo lid, so it's wife approved. It's fine to get it, guys. Your wife will like it on the counter.
Put it on the counter.
Yeah, it's fine. So
Counter approved.
yeah, exactly. so it becomes this physical representation of what your intentions are as a family. So hey, the newborn family, we are present with each other. The Ballinger family, hey, we prioritize conversation over phone time. So it's that physical representation of what's most important to you. So that is RO, is that pairing of this beautiful box with an app that measures the amount of time you're away from your phone, that gamifies the amount of time. And then on the other side, I mentioned the enterprise side, the corporate side. We've launched a brand called Reclaimwell. We want you to reclaim your time well. We want you to reclaim your relationships well. We want you to reclaim your quiet times well, and your prayer time, your Bible time, all that kind of stuff. And that's specifically targeted for organizations. Even more specifically, it's targeted to church staffs. So churches are bringing this platform into their church staffs that is absolutely changing their culture, that is prioritizing, because I believe, and I don't want to go down too deep of a rabbit trail, not that I haven't already rabbit trailed like 9 times today, but this core belief that when Jesus talks about the parable of the soil, Jesus talks about the thorns that choke out the seed, that choke out the word. And the thorns, Jesus says, represent 3 things. It's the deceitfulness of wealth, it's the worries of life, and it's the pleasures of life. So let's just think about what lives in our phone. The deceitfulness of wealth. Let's think about scrolling Instagram and seeing these beautiful lives that all these people are living.
It's all fake.
Yeah, it's all fake. That's the deceitfulness. It's not the wealth. It's the lies that wealth tells you. That wealth tells you that your life is perfect if you're in Tahiti with those people right now, right? But that's not true, right? So that's a lie. The worries of life. So the worries, just imagine all the deluge of your Twitter feed and hearing about Doge and hearing about Ukraine and all. And again, those are things that we should be thinking about. But that's not the thing that when you inundate yourself with that information in the morning, all of a sudden, like, your brain is gone. You're not able to focus on anything. And the third thing, the pleasures of life. Just think about the creature comforts we seek on our phone, whether that's pornography or even lesser degrees of just numbing our minds and just seeking pleasure through our phone. So what is that doing when it comes to a church context? Those things, our phone representing those modern day thorns, that's choking out the word. The thorns are choking out the word. So I'll get a little even more theological with you. So we're walking in a little bit, I believe, as Christians, those who are Christians, we're walking at a little bit of defeat. And we're allowing the thorn, that phone, to choke out the word, the thorns to choke out the word, but without recognizing that we have victory. That when Jesus died, when they put the crown of thorns on his head, what happened? The word, capital W, Jesus choked out the thorns. So it reversed it. He reversed the script. So the word has choked out the thorns. And so we can actually walk victoriously. So our goal with Reclaimwell is how can we equip church staffs to cultivate good soil and change their culture as a staff? And then how can that spread and permeate throughout their church to where you can create good soil with the people that are within your church? So I believe, and the reason why we're so focused on this is I think this presents because of how ubiquitous this tension is. Everybody feels this, whether you believe in a God or not. And so if the church can address this, if they can be the ones to provide clarity on it, people are going to come closer to the church, and they may not yet believe in that theology, but they will say like, gosh, I really love how New Life is helping with families. Man, I really love when Daniel Grothe talks about phones, he gives clarity on it. And I want to be part of that. And then as a result, they grow more and more close to faith.
It's so interesting, Joey, to hear you talk about it from the technology side, and we've had Nick on to talk about it from like an app perspective. You're talking about more physical hardware and putting your device away. One of our guests, Joshua Becker, was on, who's very oriented around consumerism, and he was missing out on life experiences because of stuff. So his message was, and he's also a very faith-based individual, was talking about, like, again, being present with your family and not missing out on life, and having gratitude and being content with the things that are sort of within arm's distance of you, because you think you need to buy the next thing and get it delivered in 24 hours by Amazon.
Yeah, right.
In fact, there's a really great documentary on, I think it's Netflix right now, that talks about the consumer culture. Really interesting. But all of these dots seem to connect, and it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, Michael, they're all silent and steady killers. They all creep up, right?
Yeah.
And I like to talk about this in relationships. You got a couple that used to sit next to each other in the truck driving down the road all the time. The wife slowly shifts over to the far side of the truck, and then one day she looks over and she says to her husband, "You used to sit by me when we drove down the road." And he's like, "I never moved," but it happens. Marriages fall apart slowly. Nothing ever like surprises us, right?
Yeah.
Consumer culture just kind of gets its talons in you, and it slowly pulls you away from family, smartphones, all that stuff. It just happens gradually until all of a sudden we're so alerted to this change.
Yeah.
But then we have a hard time changing rapidly back to how we
culminates into an event. I mean, we've
Yeah.
talked about that event. In your case, Joey, you mentioned missing your son's goal was a pivotal moment for you that sort of has persisted over time. And it could be a health scare from somebody that it could be, a marriage on the fritz, or it's led to divorce in someone's life. There's all these things that, to your point, John, I think it just, something has steadily chipped away and then opened up this crater that you fall into, but you can crawl out of it. I mean,
Absolutely.
let's not
And
forget.
there's a great line in a Mumford & Sons song. It says, "A brush with the devil will clear your mind and strengthen your spine." And so what I love about that is, if you've experienced a moment like that, or if you do experience one coming up, pay real close attention to it, and don't waste that little brush with the devil. You don't want a full on encounter with the devil. A little brush with the devil, that's going to clear your mind out a little bit. That's going to strengthen your spine a little bit, and don't waste those moments. Don't waste those things. And you're right, what you guys are talking about, which I love. You talk about consumer culture. The key word there is culture. Culture are the taken for granted assumptions about the way a group operates. So it's the things you don't even think about. So to your point on the the people sitting farther away in the truck, it's just like it becomes part of the culture of that truck ride. Your family, it can very easily, unless you're setting up some very clear boundaries for yourself, designating sacred times and sacred places in your home that are absolutely phone free, you're going to find yourself in a little bit of a culture creep. And then before long, it's not going to be abnormal for someone to be on their phones. But I will tell you, this is for all the, tens of thousands of people who've had RO in their homes, I would say it would be very odd for anybody in those homes to have their phones at the dinner table, because they have slowly established a culture. And so you can very slowly establish culture. Again, back to the church culture thing. That could be the churches that we work with, I believe it would be very odd for them to have their phones during meetings. And so they're having very focused meetings. And one quick little point of clarification, the consumer side, I talk about the RO box, that hardware. within the church enterprise side, that's actually all a platform. So that's all on the tech side, all software platform, which creates an interesting dynamic for them because it's a little bit more scalable. It works large across a larger group. And then it taps into the power of collective action that Jonathan Haidt talks about in The Anxious Generation. Collective action is addressing a problem that is virtually impossible to do on yourself, but becomes extraordinarily easy when you do it within the larger context of a group. So if you're the one kid in your high school who doesn't have Instagram, you're going to feel like an outcast. But if you band together with 5 of your friends, and those 5 become 10, 10 become 20, all of a sudden, it's not odd at all. So you can't do it on your own, but when you do it with others, just like anything, just like working out, just like anything like that, it's like, this is why you have Bible study groups and not just all individuals. So it becomes much easier when you can do this with people.
See, I don't have anybody physically near me that help me work on my abs. John, you got to come up here and we got to do some ab workouts.
Honestly, just a picture of it. I got a Polaroid from 2002. Just a picture will motivate you. That's all you need.
That's enough. That's
enough. Just a quick laugh at myself. I love how I said before we record, hey guys, hey, listen, I won't talk to me, I'll be careful, on faith. I don't want to alienate anybody. And the whole thing has just been a stream of faith consciousness. So for the listener out there, please take the good, even if you're not there, if you're not on the faith spectrum.
But I think you said it, Joe. As long as you sort of believe in something bigger than yourself, however that comes to you, whether it's through a specific religion or something more secular, and the power of what that is, that really probably resonates with all of our audience. And,
it's all about faith.
You're doing good work. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about let's talk about a family that gets RO in their house.
Yeah.
What are the stories that you've heard? What kind of examples can you give us of change that's just dramatically swept in to that household or slowly, and tell some stories about that.
So I love one thing that was very surprising to us when we started out was we would hear stories from people talking about their very, very, very young kids who they were the motivators for them. And I'm talking like 1, 2, 3-year-old kids saying things like mommy, no phone, daddy, no phone.
Yes.
So you think about a child, you think about this natural, we're all born with this very, very deep natural need for connection. And then we put an unnatural object in between that, right? We put a plastic device in between our child's needs for eye contact and connection.
Yep.
So we put that in between. And honestly, I think you got a bunch of 1 to 3-year-olds who are just pissed right now because they want that, they crave it and they need it so deeply.
Sure.
And this is no shame, no judgment. We didn't have the information we have now 18 years ago. With the iPhone's been at 18 years. We didn't know the damage this would do to emotional development and connection. We do know now. This is why I'm very encouraged by it. So we hear those stories a lot. So we had a story from a woman in Houston, Texas, who emailed. We actually had a conversation with her. I actually loved this. I heard her story and then I interviewed her and loved it so much. So I played it on just for our staff Christmas party, just so people could hear the story from them. So she had a 2 and a 4-year-old. Her husband worked offshore and he was 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And so you would think, and the way she described it, you would think whenever he would be home, he'd be fully present, but he wasn't. You would think when he's offshore, that she would be fully present. They had 2 boys, 2 and 4, that she would be fully present with them, but she wasn't. And she didn't like it. And it was just this, like, raise your hand and say, I'm having a hard time. I'm struggling here. And so they brought Aro into their homes. And she said that in a very short amount of time, it changed the culture, that dad was fully there with them. And she was in tears talking about this impact that it had in just having this, and I'll make fun of myself, this silly little box that you put your phone in.
That's awesome.
But you have a system, it's just like anything else. I mean, think about the topic of exercise. We can go burn calories for free. We can do push-ups for free. We can do all these things on our own. We can run around the block. We do push-ups and sit-ups and all that kind of stuff. But
sit-ups.
But a lot of crunches, bicycle crunches, V-ups. John, go through some more, 7 or 8.
No, you got it. Keep going.
So we go do something. If you have a plan, you go do something proactively to remove the friction of doing something difficult that you know is valuable. So that's exactly what they did. They brought it in and it changed. It absolutely changed her 2-year-old and 4-year-old view on the world. I'll tell a personal story. So when my daughter Gianna was 8 years old, she and I watched a movie together. And this was right around when we were starting Aro. This is the very, very beginning stages. And this was actually, I know the date, it was May 8th, 2020. I know that because I wrote it in my journal because of what happened that night. At the end of the movie, Gianna, 10 years old, she wasn't 8, 10 years old, she turned to me And she said, Dad, she said, did you know that's the first time we've ever watched a movie and you haven't had your phone? Now, she
No
wasn't
way.
congratulating me. She wasn't
Yeah.
judging me. And it was almost like the interesting thing was like she had never really mentioned my phone during movies before. So I would have had no idea. But it was clear for 10 years that she had noticed that I wasn't with her. But it was also so clear to her the first time that I was with her. And so in that way, it felt good. I couldn't wait to watch another movie with her,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
fast forward 4 years later, May 8th, 2024. This is last year. I read that in my journal, and Gianna and I are driving down the street, and I said, hey, G, do you remember that night when you told me that? And she laughed. And she said, Dad, and she goes, I remember. She goes, gosh, she goes, it would be so weird if you had your phone during a movie now.
Oh, that's
So,
cool.
so think about that. Think
Yeah.
about culture again.
Very
Yes,
cool.
it has insidiously taken us over, but it can insidiously grow back
Yeah.
slowly, 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 slowly. And 4 years later, what's normal for Gianna is my full presence, and that would have been so abnormal 4 years
Yeah.
before. So back to it's never too late. Anybody listening, if you felt that, if you feel tension here, if you feel hopelessness, just think of the smallest thing you can do tonight. So I'll give a couple tips, and we go through when we do speaking events, we talk through 5 things. I'll give you 2 right now. One of them is I want you to establish sacred times and sacred places in your home that are absolutely phone free. Fellas, listen, don't mandate this. This is a group activity. It's not going to work if you mandate it. Talk with your spouse, talk with your kids and say, hey, what are some times and places that I'm on my phone that you wish I weren't? Pick one sacred time, pick one sacred place. The earlier the better, but start anytime. Sacred place, easy one is a dinner table. Sacred time, date night, perfect one. If you're at a date night, swap phones with your spouse. That's a great one too, because you're not going to doom scroll their phone, but you are still available in case the babysitter calls. So that's a good one, a phone swap. So sacred time, sacred places. The other one, I want you to search for moments of connection. And here's what I mean by that. When you search for moments of connection, that's the Gottman Institute talks about bids, and our spouses putting out bids. Bids are these nonverbal or verbal asks for connection. So it could be just your spouse giggling to themselves, and they want you to ask, like, hey, what is it? What's so funny? They're saying, like, do you see me? Will you connect with me? So when you detect a bid, it could be subtle or overt. It could be my son saying, Dad, can I talk to you? It could be my daughter saying, oh, I had the worst day at school. They are putting out bids. And here's what I want you to do. You can start it today. Say the 6 most powerful words in the English language. And it's so silly and it's so basic, but here's what it is. When you detect that bid, all you say is, let me put down my phone. Again, it sounds so dumb. 6 words, let me put down my phone. Casually say it. Physically remove your phone from that situation. If you have an RO box, put it in there. If you have a drawer, put it in there. If you have a couch,
So
throw it on
good.
the couch, right? And then turn towards, and then sit in front of that person and lock eyes with them. That physicality is so important, because here's what that's telling that person. You're telling that person you have value. You're bestowing value on that person by that simple act, those 6 words and that turning towards. What it's really telling them is, hey, there are 8 billion people on this earth who could theoretically reach me on my phone. And guess what? You are more important than every single one of them in this moment. So
That's
what
good.
does that do to rebuild or sustain intimacy in a marriage? What does that do for my son, the young man who wants to be a good man? What does that do for my daughter the next time she's confronted with body comparison or mean girls at school? So these will still be hard things, but she will know I have value because I've seen my dad's eyes locked on mine. That will change the world. Those 6 magic words and the physicality of removing your phone and locking eyes with the person in front of you.
And just as a point, a clarifying question real quick, Joey. So this box, anybody who has a device in the house can put it in there and
Yeah.
bring themselves into the present and lock eyes and
Absolutely.
talk about.
Yeah.
So it's not
this
just
isn't-
the dad or the mom or the parents. It could be
Absolutely.
teenagers and everybody.
Absolutely. And this
Yeah.
is not, again, I promise you, this is a 0 product pitch. I don't
Yeah.
care if
Yeah,
anybody
yeah.
buys one of these.
Sure.
Throw it on the couch. Put it in a drawer. Do whatever you need to do to communicate that, because that's the lasting stuff. That's the stuff that's going to make a difference. That's the stuff that's going to initiate this multi-generational change.
Nice.
I love your point about eye contact, Joey. When I
Yeah,
was in the
that's
Marine
good.
Corps for 20 years, the way I knew that another Marine heard what I said or was listening, right, is they're looking me in the eyes. They're nodding their head, right? I get out of the Marine Corps and I get so inundated with all these other things and all these options. And what am I trying to do after the Marine Corps? And I started paying attention to my phone a lot more because I was afraid I was
Sure.
missing an opportunity.
Of course.
And I realized one day that I was doing exactly what you're talking about. And I told my boys, I told my wife, I said, hey, from now on, if mom or dad ever is in a conversation and we bring up the phone in between us, just stop talking. It gets real awkward real quick.
Love it.
And I mean, and it happened a lot.
Yeah.
And I'd have to put my phone down and my boys would then lock eyes with me and start talking again. And so now that's just kind of a standing rule in our house. And I love it because it prioritizes that eye contact. I know that they're seeing me there. And when they're talking, they're seeing me do, acknowledge. And so I just love that powerful statistic about eye contact. And it just means so much. And I think that's also where the breakdown in our communication in our communities lies, is we don't engage enough face to face.
Yeah. John, how old are your boys?
9 and 12 now.
All right. So here's what's cool about that. What you've established for them is a template for the rest of their lives. So if they go on a date when they're 16 with someone and they find that girl across the table is constantly staring at her phone, the boys are going to understand their innate value and they're going to say, I'm more valuable than that. I need to be treated differently by a person across the table from me. They're going to notice that because you've established that template for them. So what you're doing is setting them up for success in all their future relationships, and their standards for themselves are going to go even so much higher. I think about this with my daughter a bunch, especially. I tell her all the time, if you go on a date someday and a boy does that to you, here's what you do. You order the surf and turf, you allow him to pay, and you never go out with him again. Just find the most freaking expensive thing on the menu. Just, hey, order a bottle of wine and bring it back to me and mom. You know what I mean? Like, you can drink it, but bring it back to us, right? Like, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
That's great.
Man, that's awesome. Joey, your time is incredibly valuable. I love this conversation. We could riff for another hour.
Oh
if we
my
wanted
gosh.
to, but
Unbelievable.
we always try to capitalize the last few moments of our guest time by asking for practical advice. If you were going to go do something new again, or you want to advise somebody that's leaving what they've been doing before, their commercial real estate gig, and they're going to start RO, what would you do differently, or what advice would you give them if they were in your shoes 10 years ago when you're starting this out?
I'm gonna give you a convoluted answer that may not be very satisfying. I would say that the person that you marry is such a huge part of this. And I believe that you can go back. So this may be, and again, this is not too late for others, but gosh, you got to have a partner who's ready, who's going to be in it with you. I don't know how anybody would do that. I'm so fortunate that I have Kristen, who is on the ride. I mean, she's walking a tightrope with me, right? So having that partner. So maybe I'll make it even more practical. Let me make this a little more practical. And so I don't want to cause a bunch of divorces with this answer. So what I would say is, make sure you're aligned with your partner first. Seek alignment and take some time to seek that alignment. So I believe that would be, I think everything else is going to feel like, man, this is toil to begin with. A startup is toil to begin with. And it's going to be multiples of toil if you're not aligned with your partner. So that would be the advice I would give, is align with your spouse, align with your partner, be on the same page as them. And then you'll be able to weather that storm together. You can remove the I told you so's if things don't go well, because you made this decision together.
Yeah, it's good. Genius.
I
Hey,
love
I
it.
had a bunch of ORU name drops too. That was like a bunch of ORU name drops I went in there too. I mean, we covered it. We covered it all.
Well, there's a little bit of jealousy because I know you got Ryan Tedder on your episode, on your podcast.
What a guy.
I've been trying for like a year. He's even in Colorado. His dad's in Colorado Springs from time to time.
It was not easy. I just told him, hey, this is Joe Rogan instead of Joey Odom. So he thought he was joining the Rogan show. I think that's what happened.
If you say it fast enough, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Joey,
Awesome.
for people watching, I mean, I've had a smile on my face the whole time.
Fun.
I mean, it brings back so many memories, and it's so good to see so many people like yourself doing amazing things like RO. And I'm blessed to hear you speak. I'm blessed to see you sitting across the screen. And I want to thank you for just coming on the show, taking the time, even though it took us 17 tries to get our schedules together. For a couple people that are trying to be intentional in their lives.
Good Lord. That's the downside.
We had
isn't
some work to do, but it was 100% worth it.
Oh yeah.
100%,
Absolutely.
man. And,
Yeah.
Grateful for you guys.
Yeah, I think our listeners are going to get a lot of gems out of this episode.
Oh, for sure.
For those that want to connect with you or to know more about RO or just see more of your beautiful locks, where can they do that?
So here's what, if you're a consumer, we'd love for you to go check out goaro.com, GOARO.com. If you're on the church side, go to reclaimwell.com. If you're interested in having me come and speak, we do a bunch of parent nights. We do a bunch of corporate events as well. That's on reclaimwell.com, our speaking tab there. So just reach out on that, and we'd love to connect. And again, we're super, super hopeful and grateful for you guys and what you're doing with the second act. And I think that it's a need that I don't see other people filling. And you guys have a great voice for people going through that and encouraging people, giving them the tools how to approach a second act in life.
Joey, it was awesome meeting you today, man. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks,
Yeah.
fellas.
And
Appreciate
I'll
you.
give you my address after the show, and you can come speak in my house. I love it. You might not make much money, but no,
I'll do
man.
it. I'll be seeing you. We'll be hanging in
Yeah.
Colorado soon.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
link up. Joey, man, be blessed. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for all you're doing to reconnect families
For sure. Yeah.
and reclaim livelihood, and
Absolutely.
get people off their devices. So thanks so much for your time. And Michael,
John,
wrap this up.
what a great episode. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, boys.
All right. With that,
Thanks.
we'll see you.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballinger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act Movement on most platforms. Thanks for listening.
Seltzer Kings.
Podcasts.